Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night. I know I messed that order up. I did it on purpose. Tonight, it's episode number 55 with my host, who's on the show every Tuesday, the Sensei, Big Mike. Tonight's episode, a flight of freestyle. We're going all in, freestyling. No script, no topic. We're just going off the top of our heads. We did this before on season one. We had a great time, and man, we just talked and meshed, and we we just got it in for a whole hour on the Final Boss episode, the only podcast where we have the most difficult of conversations. Before we get started, to my smarts, please, 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 please go like, share, and subscribe. The information, the channels, the social media sites. Get that out there to everyone. And we appreciate everyone's support. You know, this is how we do. This is how we get down. This is season two. And before I get started, I like to start each episode off with brass tacks. And tonight's brass tacks comes from an author by the name of William Cooper. If you don't know, you don't know. To cling to the past is guaranteed suicide. To remain apathetic is assured enslavement. To learn the truth and then act on it is the only means of survival at this moment. That's my brass tacks for tonight. Like I said, this is episode 55, a flight of freestyle. We're going freestyle tonight with the sensei. Man, it's a crazy, crazy place.
It's been a great journey so far.
It has been a great journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
You know, you think about the depth and the breadth of what we've covered so far and the amount of information that a lot of folks just never are exposed to.
Right.
They just don't understand because they've never been taught. And to just put it out there, and we've come so far with the way we can tie things together, and it's been an amazing journey so far. I will say that. I must say it's been an amazing journey. And from where we began on when I was first a guest on the show and where we come to, it's pretty impressive because the amount of material and things that we've covered. And just think about this. We're just scratching the surface.
Oh, yes.
Because we're not going deep on subjects. We're just barely saying, hey, look, here's something you could be involved in or be aware of that you need to go investigate on your own and learn on. But look over here.
Mm-hmm.
Look that direction.
Correct.
Because mass media and even social media wants to guide you into the echo chamber where you only hear the things that you like. You only hear the things that are what they think you're going to click like on.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do anything which puts you outside of that comfort zone because that entire mechanism is designed to corral you into your own echo chamber. And that's what happens is you naturally only hear your side of the story.
Right.
And then you get guided, even though you don't think so, but you get guided gently towards a certain direction. You see, it's so subtle that you don't even realize it before that you're already been pushed 10 degrees off of true north, right?
Right.
Because you don't notice it half a degree at a time. And to just stop for a moment and look and say, hey, there's another perspective. Just stop and look at another perspective. It's huge because understanding and knowledge can only come if you have curiosity. Correct. And the only way you're going to have curiosity is if you have something that comes up and goes, hey, did you think about that?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think about the other side of the coin or even the fine line between the both sides of the coin, so you have to look at it from that perspective of there's left and right of the coin or heads and tails, but there's also if the coin stands on its end.
Correct.
And mainly the truth will lie where the coin stands on the end. So the place that you want to be watching for is not the left or the right. You want to watch super
And then,
fine
right,
line
that fine line. Yeah.
where you're going to find the truth.
Right.
But everything else is trying to distract you into this lie or that lie,
Right.
but not let you see the truth.
Yeah.
And that's the funny part about it, is that most folks are so involved in just trying to make a living.
Yeah.
You know, they feel that they're indentured. They feel that all they can do is struggle to even catch a breath.
Right.
Not understanding the concept of, okay, if I'm in the water and the waves are coming, they can become predictable if you think for a moment. So what you do is you can then time your breath, that you know the wave in between waves, deep breath, and now you're ready to go. See? And what happens is, instead of you being caught as the wave crashes on you trying to catch your breath, you start to catch the timing of it. And the time, it becomes impeccable. Because even if things are tough, and even if the storm is raging, the waves are not incessant. There is always a gap between the waves.
Right.
And if you can understand how to catch your breath between the waves, you know how to dive through the wave, and suddenly it's predictable. And once it becomes predictable, oh my God, now it's easy to deal with anything.
Yeah. The great estimation.
Yes. Have you ever heard the stories, the difference between the domesticated cows and the buffalo when a storm comes?
No. Please let us know.
So, domesticated cattle, beef cattle, dairy cattle, whatever. When a storm comes and the cattle see the storm coming, they try and run away from the storm. Their natural instinct is to run from the storm. Okay, if you're running from the storm, you're always at the edge of the storm, and the storm is always going to be on top of you. The buffalo do not run from the storm. They run directly into the storm.
Oh, that's interesting.
And therefore, the storm for them is much less impactful because they get through the storm.
Okay.
And they come out on the other side in the calm, where the domesticated cattle stay in the storm for days.
Yeah.
Because they try and outrun it. Never outrun the storm. Go against your domesticated instinct, move to the wild side, and run at the storm. There's 3 types of reaction to any dangerous situation. The first is you run away.
Right.
The second is you freeze. And the third is you run towards.
Fight or flight. Yes, sir.
Fight or flight. It's a natural human instinct. If you learn what your propensity is, you then can understand how you're going to react in almost any difficult situation. And if you can run towards the trouble, there'll be a lot less trouble for you because you get through it much faster than if you're wallowing in it.
Well, you know, as you're running towards the trouble assumption is that you're going to run away.
Right.
When you run towards it, now you have the trouble that has to rethink
and go, uh-oh.
That's
What's
not
this?
supposed to happen. Right.
This ain't supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be the big scary.
Right.
And
now
suddenly,
the rabbit
now they're going,
right.
Why the rabbit attacking me?
Yeah, the rabbit has the gun now. Yeah.
The rabbit got the gun. Yep. I'm telling you, it is wild.
It increases your odds. It increases your odds of winning.
Absolutely. Because now you actually can choose your own destiny instead of your destiny choosing you.
Correct.
Because the most folks allow destiny to pick them. Well, it was my destiny for that to happen. Well, did you choose your destiny, or did you allow it to just happen?
It happened, right?
Because look, everything's going to happen in the world. Nothing matters about what happens because you can't change that.
You can't change.
The only thing you can change is how do you react to what happens to you.
Yep. Are you going to embrace it, or are you going to run from it?
That's right. Are you going to say, "Well, it's coming. I have a better chance of survival if I fight than if I run"?
Correct.
Look, if a bad guy walks into a room and a bad guy has a gun in his hands, what are your chances of survival if you run? Nada.
None.
What are your chances of survival if you stand still and freeze? Even worse.
Even worse.
But the only thing that increases your odds for survival, the only thing
is to fight back.
Immediately attack with everything you have.
Everything you got. Yep. That increases your chances by 50%.
Absolutely. It's the only way to survive those types of situations. You know, to run, hide, and barricade yourself is kind of like, really?
Yeah.
If I got 10 folks and the bad guy's out there and he's coming at us, he's going to shit himself and 10 of us come after him all at once.
Yeah.
With cray-cray in our eyes.
Right. It's unexpected.
He don't know what to do now, you see? Yeah. And that moment of hesitation is all it takes.
Yeah.
And the mass overwhelms.
Yep.
Watch how ants in nature can take down a huge beast. Many, many, many ants can take down a huge beast. Why? Because they're committed. It's not one ant takes on the beast. It's all the ants. Did you ever watch otters?
Right.
Otters don't attack one at a time. A little otter will attack a big crocodile. Why? Because you don't attack one otter. You attack all of the
otters. Right.
And they all come in. And they will take out a crocodile. Because a crocodile cannot withstand that kind of onslaught. Because it gets no break. It has no chance of survival. And the chances of the survival of the crocodile in that kind of confrontation is very limited.
Agreed.
His only chance is to run away because that many otters are going to take him out. And they fight as one.
Right.
And see, that's the thing. We can sit out here in our little bubbles that we all live in, and we can be individuals, and we can be picked off one at a time if we want.
If we want.
Or we can become one.
It's a revolution.
Well, if you want to call it that. I tend to refer to it more as survival, not a revolution, because
survival.
That's a big term that gets us in trouble.
Yeah, it does.
Because you always have to be careful about the words you say in these platforms.
Oh, absolutely. We get dinged quite often for
because we tell the truth.
Right.
And the problem is that because we tell the truth, you're going to get dinged for telling the truth, because the truth is not convenient. The truth does not fit the plan. Correct. And the plan is very, very simple and easy to understand, which is you get up, you go to work, you're done with work, you go home, you get entertained by a distraction,
right?
And then you go to sleep and you wake up and you start again.
That's it.
That is the cycle. That is the approved cycle of life.
It sure is.
You get the illusion of the white picket fence, 20 years in a job, retire. You get the illusion that life is grand. You work 50 to 60 years giving into the system. If you're lucky, you get 5 out of it.
Right.
And there's people that are out there that are way smarter than me that have said that it's a scam. But, you know, the whole reason it was developed in the first place was because back in World War II, when we had the New Deal happening, we had a large number of federal employees. And the private sector had retirements for people.
Right.
But there was nothing comparable for federal employees. So the system was built called Social Security, which was a type of retirement for federal employees. But then it became more popular as those people left federal employment and went back to the private sector. That program stayed alive and they could take it with them. And that's how we have Social Security for everybody. Because a federalized retirement program, as people were leaving the federal sector, they wanted to keep that, and therefore it was kept alive.
Correct.
And it was a good system because it gave you a fallback. So in that system, you put into it for an enormous amount of time because it's now relegated that you will put into it. But the problem is the return on investment, or the ROI for your actual investment, is much less than if you were to have gone out into the private sector and done a medium risk investment, not a high risk investment, but a medium risk
Medium.
investment.
Mm-hmm.
Because the turnaround is, instead of being a couple $100,000, it would have been a couple of million. But the safe bet is the bet that you tend to go towards.
Right.
And it's just the nature of that animal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the whole thing in looking at that, you see that the system is designed for you to be a factory worker. You get up, you show up on time, ding, you go to lunch, ding, you go home, ding, next morning, ding. But that's what our classrooms teach us. Our children go to classes, and the class is structured that at a certain time, it goes ding, go to next class, ding, go to
Right.
next class.
Yep.
So inherently, it's
Line.
creating
Yeah. Getting the
it's
straight
creating
line.
that environment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It sure is. Yep.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's not a terrible thing to have as a fallback. I think it's a great thing to have. But diversification, of course, is the key to success. I mean, if you were to, at 18 years old, when you went into the workforce, started putting away money until you're 28 years old and took a percentage and put it away until you're 28, you never have to invest the rest of your life. You have millions of dollars when you retire. Think about that. If you started investing at 18 years old and you're done investing at 28 years old and you invest not another penny, you can easily have millions of dollars when you retire. But you don't get that in the federalized system because it's designed to cover a much broader, much safer, it's much more safer money, right?
Right.
You can easily look that up.
Oh no, I've tested the market on multiple platforms. Being a military and federal government employee, where I was utilizing the TSP, and I started invested in that when I went into the military at 18 and transferred it over to the federal government program. But at the same time, I would dabble in these other retirement plans, and now even with crypto. So yeah, I'm very familiar with those, and you're absolutely correct. I feel like the government program, although here of late, because of the different programs that they allow with the high yields and the program,
the tax breaks of your IRAs and things of that nature.
Yeah, but it wasn't a moderate, it was a high risk. They had a high risk one where people were actually getting rich off of that one. But compared to the private sector,
you can afford risk when you're young. Once you get to a retirement age, it's time to stop that risk. It's time to back that off.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You need to be in a more safe zone.
Yep.
Look, and I'm not even remotely an expert in that world at all. I just look at it from the perspective of how we are conditioned to think our entire life.
Right.
And that's the perspective I look at it from, because I'm not a financial advisor by any stretch of imagination. But I know the mechanics of what we're taught.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn some really interesting, don't study psychology, because that's study sociology. It is the mindset of the masses.
Yeah, correct.
And that's, if you want to see what's really happening, look at that. Because the mindset of the masses is where the real power is. It's how a tidal wave of emotion comes at you and you tend to go along with it.
Oh, trending.
Human nature, trending thoughts. Absolutely. Look, my God, when things go quote unquote viral.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And when depending on area of space that it's trending, I tend to go the opposite direction.
Smart move. Run away from the mess.
You don't want to get caught
absolutely. So if I see a large media presence in a certain event and I see a tiny media presence over here, where do you think I'm going to lean?
Absolutely.
Because the mass has a script. and they follow the script.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever watched any of those YouTube shorts or the reels that show you that how scripted it is when they have one news station, two news stations, five news stations, 10 news stations, 100 news stations, and they're all saying the exact same thing. And I'm thinking like, well, that's real original. But every one of them comes across as an excellent teleprompt reader to make you feel like what they're saying is original, because they realize that you're only going to look at it from the perspective of their channel.
Yeah. Now
they don't know at the same time that they're broadcasting, you have the ability of looking at 100 more simultaneously and lining them up.
You know what it's called? Welcome to the Matrix.
Well, I like to call it back to your regularly scheduled, and what's the word? Programming.
Yeah. So
it's not a program, it's programming.
Well, there's 3 media companies, right? Yeah. It's only 3. And they disseminate the information.
All of it.
So if y'all didn't know that, go do your research on that. It's only 3.
We're not
and they're mostly owned by a
select few.
A select few, but the majority is the Beta Romeo company.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about the one company is that when you start to try and research who owns it, you can't find out who owns it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
there's a guy, man. I follow a guy on TikTok, and he breaks all these companies down to the minute.
Well, if you're a member of the board on 10 companies, you don't think your influence is in 10 companies?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So come on, let's get real.
Yeah.
And this is well published.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even remotely have to talk about it. We just go out there and say, go look at that.
Oh,
who owns the food supply in the world?
Well, the main company just bought all of the harbors at Panama.
Oh my. Oh, I was like, oh my.
Right. So
the government didn't even have to step in.
It was a snap
of
a finger.
You want it? It's yours.
Yeah.
We got you.
I was like, you went to bed, you woke up. The U.S. owns Panama again.
You want to do some homework? Look up who just purchased the Panama Canal.
Yeah. Go do that.
Yeah. I'm not telling you.
I'm not. But I'll tell you this is Beta Romeo. And
woo.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And that was like, when that happened, I was like,
oh, here we go.
Oh my God, did it happen fast?
It has started.
It happened fast.
Yeah.
Did you know that there's an additional or secondary or another location that is further south of that? I think, or maybe north. I think it's north of that for a proposed super high speed rail system.
Yeah.
To go from one to the other rapidly, as in like move massive amounts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to go that way. We can do it here. Watch this.
Yeah.
That was fascinating in its own right.
Indeed.
Well, because the technological advancement that allows it to happen and cost effective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh my goodness, wow.
Yeah.
And we're talking high speed. We're talking like miles become nothing.
Nothing. Mm-hmm. Not measured in distance. Speed. Yes, sir.
Pretty fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty fascinating. So, spring is in the air.
Spring is in the air. Hooray for spring. Well, not for us.
But I thought you had global warming over there.
What's that?
I don't know what it is because it seems like you're freezing your ass off.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. I just heard about a little further north of you that use more wood this year than they've used in the past 10.
Wow.
Because it's so warm. You
right.
see? Yeah, because it's so warm.
Mm.
But this is what happens when you listen to I'm going to call it the talking heads.
Mm.
If they say something, the smartest thing you could potentially do is be skeptical of what is being told to you. in almost every front.
Absolutely.
And if you're skeptical, then you go, is that true or not true? And how does that tie into the game plan?
But
so there's two ways to look at things.
But there's a problem with that. There's a problem with that, Mike.
What's that?
We're not supposed to be critical thinkers.
Oh, darn.
No.
So what's fascinating is there's two ways to look at life. Only two. Because life is very simple. It's binary. It's zeros and ones.
Right.
If you want to break it down to brass tacks, it's zeros and ones. Life is binary.
On and off.
It's either on or off. That's the switch.
That's
Okay.
the switch. Yep.
If it's gray, you're too far away from it to recognize that it's binary. So if you want to know it's binary, get close to it. You'll recognize it. All right. So there's two ways to look at this thing called life. One is from the bottom up, which is I look at my life from how it affects me, and I look around me, and this is all I know is me. Okay?
Right.
I only know what's around me. The problem with that is I'm looking up. And all I see is assholes and shit. But if I'm looking top down, I'm the bird on the wire, and I can look at the entire forest. Am I looking at one blade of grass because I'm so close to it, or am I looking at the entire field?
Right.
And I can watch the wind blow and see what directions it's blowing. But if I'm looking at my blade of grass, I don't know where it's going until it's on top of me. It's too late.
Correct.
So you can look at things from the top down, but you also have to know in order to move forward, you must leave that perspective and actually get in the weeds.
You got to get into it.
And then you can move forward, but then you must stop and get back up on top of the trees.
Right.
To reorient yourself because the winds change.
Yeah.
And when the grass is up and the lawnmower comes by and it cuts the grass off.
Right.
But if the wind blows and the grass is smart and the lawnmower goes by, and when the wind goes the other direction, the grass doesn't stand up. It goes, oh, nope, I know the wind just changed.
Yeah.
Because the smart grass becomes tall. And the lawnmower comes by, he's already waiting. And so you can start to predict the lawnmower coming by. And when the lawnmower is going to cut the grass, you do not want to have your head up over the look at me, look at me, look at me. Nope, you don't want to do that.
And another thing you don't want to get distracted by when the grass is swaying. You don't want to get distracted by the lady in the red dress.
Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
And talk about the reference to that, right?
Man, we're dropping some gems tonight. Listen, it's a freestyle.
Because I'm telling you, life is closer to that viewpoint than you could ever imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, you look at what the human brain is, and we are a combination of our memories and our experiences. Okay, we're actually computers, if you want to be frank about it.
Yep.
I think computers were built after us. So we have a hard drive brain. We have memories, storage. We have the ability of processing, meaning we can think, and therefore we process data.
Right.
That's our CPU. It has a certain
output
speed. We have input.
Yep.
Eyes, ears, mouth, nose, touch. We have input. We also have output. So we have inputs and outputs.
Right.
We have processing power. We have memory. So when I look at a computer, and this is how I describe it when I teach it, is I say, okay, the CPU is the ability of processing, meaning if I want to read a piece of paper, how fast can I read the words?
Correct.
Then I have a thing called memory. And I have cache, which says how many words can I look at one time? If I have a lot of cache, I can look at more than one word.
Right.
Then what happens? You say, okay, I have a lot of cache. Now I have RAM. So now my cache is I'm looking at a piece of paper and I'm reading my piece of paper. How fast can I read this one piece of paper? But now I have what's called RAM, which is random access memory. Now I have how big is my desk and how many pieces of paper can I put on my desk before I have to go to the file cabinet, which is my long-term storage.
Right.
So the more RAM I have, the bigger my desk is and the more paper I put on my desk.
Correct.
Okay. So now I can process faster, read more words at one time, and I got a really big desk. But it takes time to take a piece of paper off the desk, put it in the file cabinet, and grab another piece of paper and put it back up on the desk.
Right.
That's called the swap space. So what that means is that I can access my long-term storage. It just takes a little longer. So computers are actually built after us.
Us, absolutely.
We have what's called a basic input-output system, meaning we have certain functions that we don't think about. The basic functions we don't think about are eating or digestion, breathing, heating, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole ton of them that we don't think about. Do you think about sleeping?
Right.
Do you think about repairing your body while you're sleeping? That's all dealt with behind the scenes.
Correct.
Then you have programs. And this is where the matrix comes in. A program is this. I'm a newborn child. I know nothing. I am a blank operating system.
Right.
Okay. Now I learn this thing called talking.
Now it's learning.
And then I learn this thing called crawling.
Yep.
And then I learn the next thing called walking. And these are all programs built on top of the basic operating system. And then as we grow, we learn more and more programs.
Right.
All right. Buy a brand new computer. It's very empty. It has nothing on it, right? What do? You start adding programs to it.
Correct.
Add this, add that, add this, add that, do this, do that. Word processing, spreadsheets, email, internet. All these things I add to a basic program.
Right. Applications, everything.
Applications.
Yeah.
So our life is built on learning new applications. We don't necessarily retire old applications. We just don't use them as much.
No.
But they're still there.
They get updates.
And they get updates. And there you go.
Yes, sir.
They get updates. Look at languages. How many words you have to know and be fluent in those words to understand the language? That's
a
pretty
great
fascinating.
Question.
Well,
fascinating.
I'm going to ask that question real quick because you know what I like. How many words are needed, if I can spell correctly, to begin to understand another language?
I think you're onto something, Mike. I think that, I had my auntie on the other day. We were talking about Alzheimer's. And if we're looking at where computers were made after us, for the most part, the ROM memory is what I believe you start losing first when it comes to Alzheimer's.
I think with Alzheimer's, what you do is you lose the ability to access the memory. It's the pathway. It's the pathway that you lose. So if I have a pathway that I take every day to go to my mailbox, and then one day my pathway gets it washes out with a flood.
Right.
And now I know the mailbox is there. I just don't know how to get to it because the flood came by and washed away my path.
So if a system can't access this application, something is blocking you from accessing this application.
What happens is you need to develop the other pathways, alternative routes.
Alternative routes.
So if I'm a primary right-brained thinker and I'm logical in my thought, I need to do things on a daily basis to exercise the left side. Artistic, language, all these music, these things that if I'm a left-brain thinker, I need to exercise the right side of my brain.
You know
what happens is if I have neural pathways which are strong on both sides and this one gets damaged, I have the way to get there, a little longer path, but I can still get there.
There's a practice that I started doing. Whenever I can, I'm right-handed, so I'm right-handed dominant. So I started brushing my teeth with my left hand.
Smart move.
I started brushing and doing whatever I can with my left so I can develop those skills. Pathways.
Did you ever watch how Europeans eat their food?
No. Tell me about that. Well, you know what? I was born in Germany. I should know this.
You should have noticed, right? So typically Americans who are right-handed have their fork in the right hand.
Right.
Then what they'll do is they'll switch the fork to the left hand, use the knife to cut with the right hand, and then they switch back to eat.
do that. I do that when I'm cutting my steak.
The Europeans will hold the fork with the left hand, cut with the right hand, and eat with the left hand. Because they can go from left to right.
Okay.
And that is a simple skill set. You need to practice that. If I'm cutting a piece of meat or anything that I'm cutting, and my knife is held in my right hand, cut with the right hand eat with the left.
Yeah.
Start to learn how to eat food with the left hand.
Start training that brain. Yeah.
Train your brain to use another way. It's another way to get it done. Once you can teach your brain how to do something in a very simple fashion,
yeah,
you can apply that to other things.
Absolutely.
Same template, different stories.
It's very
so
adaptive.
If you want to learn basic survival in a language, I don't care what the language is, you want basic survival. Your word count is 500 to 1,000 words.
Okay.
If you want to have conversational fluency, basic topics like family, work, hobbies, or feelings, basic conversations, not too deep, 2,000 to 3,000 words. If you want to understand news articles, complex discussions, etc., most native speakers use around 5,000. So it's 5,000 to 8,000 words you need to know to master a language. If you have near native level, it's 10,000 words or more. That includes slang, deep discussions, jokes. You understand the subtleties of words. They say the average educated native speaker, educated person, has 20 to 35,000 words that they know. Now, the first 1,000 words make up 80% of conversations.
Okay.
So if you want to learn another language, understand what you need. That's to break it down into pieces.
Break it down. Yeah.
You break it down. So there's several things you can do in this world to slow down or avoid the dementia/Alzheimer's, because it's a devastating thing to have happen. And if anybody has ever had someone they know to have that happen to them, it is just the most devastating thing.
Yeah, my grandparents.
I've seen the effects of it where I know a friend of mine who has onset and remembers everything from years ago, but 5 minutes ago can't remember, and will tell you the same thing over and over again. And then if they get out of their element, you can sense and feel in them the anxiety, and they're lost and they don't know what to do about it, and they can't find their way. And so the anxiety level of that gets really intense, and that's some scary shit.
Yeah,
because that is a devastating thing to have happen. Is to not lose your memories, but lose the ability of touching your memories. So there's things we can do to mitigate that circumstance. Like I said, if I'm a right brain thinker, exercise the left side of my
left side of your brain
basis.
Right.
If I'm a left brain thinker, exercise the right side of my brain on a daily basis. And I'm not talking about for 5 minutes. I'm talking 30 minutes or more.
Yeah.
You're not going to go to a gym workout for 2 minutes and walk away and have you had a good workout. No, you need to have 30 minutes of good hard work. You need to break a sweat.
Break a sweat with it.
You need to push yourself. And it's required because, in my world, I figured this way. I'll work until the day I die is what I like to say. Because the economy has caused that to have happened to me. Is that just a natural tendency that in order for you to live a comfortable lifestyle, which you're accustomed, you have to work.
Or until you get to the point where you can say F you.
Well, right. So what occurs is if you are working and producing, therefore you're not spending because you're working, you're so busy working. Do you spend more money on a Saturday or a Tuesday?
Absolutely on a Saturday.
Now your life is full of Saturdays.
Right. That's true.
So, if you either have time or money, but you never have both at the same time.
Right.
So when I have time, I'm not going to have the money. So therefore, what do? You keep working so you have the money. But so you're selling your time to have the resource to be able to do what you want to do.
Correct.
So the way to succeed in that endeavor,
and that's freedom.
It's freedom. Cut down your expectations. You need to stop trying to keep up with the Joneses and have more. In later in life, you will learn that less
is best.
Less is best, and less is the new rich.
Yeah.
The new wealth in the world is not things you have, it's the experiences you've had.
I agree with that.
That's the new wealth.
Absolutely.
Because everybody has things.
Yeah.
But the things
get old. Things get old.
Well, what happens when you're laying in the bed and it's time for you to die? Do you want to look back at the things that you bought, or you want to look back at the experiences you had?
Definitely want to look back at the
You know, I
experience.
want to look back and say that, you know what, I've been to Niagara Falls and I watched the power of that water, and it was unbelievably life-changing to see nature's force
Right.
so powerful. And
Mhm.
it puts your life in perspective when you see how infinitesimal you are to that.
Correct.
And so you see things like that. You go out and get away from the city and go out to where there are no lights, and you can look up at the night sky and not see the city lights, but truly see the night sky. It'll change your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable how awe-inspiring it is. And you
Yeah.
look at that and go, wow, this is just, oh my goodness, this is
Yeah.
impressive. You know, because what you're doing at that point is you're not existing in those moments. You're living in those moments.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, life is about living, not existing.
Mm-hmm.
Work day to day, lather, rinse, repeat is existing. You have to stop and take your moment to live. How many times have you heard people that, look, it's time for me to have my lunch break. I'm going to go for a walk.
Right.
What did they just do? They
They
got
just
away from
change.
the work and they
Yep.
went out. I don't care if
Change.
they're going for a walk around the block.
Yep.
They got to change scenery, and they got to experience something they might not have experienced if they're still sitting in the office.
Correct.
The scent, the smell. That's why motorcycle riding is so impressive. Every 2 seconds, the scenery changes.
You know, that's why I love convertibles. Oh,
Right,
man.
because you
Yeah.
can experience the scenery, not just
Yeah.
you're not in a bubble.
Yep.
That's why I love motorcycles, because when I'm out riding,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the scenery. I experience it. I
Yeah.
feel it. It's part of me.
Yeah.
And the hot and the cold and the
All of it.
rain and the wind all are part of it, and make it so that it's part of the enjoyment of it. The fact that I'm saying, hey, I know that I'm cold.
Right.
And I know I'm freezing my tush off. But guess what? At least I'm doing something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And it's part of the story. It says, you remember that time we went riding? It was 25 degrees out and we rode for 4 hours and how frozen we were? Yep.
Yep.
And you have a story to tell for it.
Yeah. I have a similar story. A few years back, it was snowing here. It wasn't too bad. Not a lot of accumulation, but it was snowing. I jumped in the vet, put the top down, and I experienced that. And that experience, it's a 3D experience because, like you said, you're getting the smell, you're getting the visual, you're
You
getting
sense
the
it.
hearing,
It touches you.
It touches you, and you're feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have those memories.
And there's a difference between seeing something
Mm-hmm.
and feeling it.
Correct.
I don't think we do enough feeling of this life. I think we do too much looking at it.
Yeah.
Look,
And
if I
passing
look
it
at it,
by.
if I look at a screen, it's two-dimensional.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It might have the subtleties what makes me think it's three-dimensional. But if I want three-dimensional, I got to go out in the world
Got to go out in the world and experience it.
and experience it.
Yep.
You never know how it feels to do something as stupid as playing tennis or pickleball or squash or whatever.
Right.
The experience of that and how you feel after you do that versus sitting on front of a computer screen playing a computer game.
Playing a computer game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference.
Yeah.
So what else is new in the world? And no,
Everything.
we don't talk about
we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about
and I'm not talking politics. I'm talking, and when I say the world, I mean the things that are not being fed to us.
Okay.
The other stories out there of what's happening that we're not really paying attention to because we're so busy paying attention to the wrong things.
Right. And that was the things that we should be paying attention to.
Right. Like, like who's headed to the moon lately?
Somebody just landed on the moon.
You see, those are the kind of stories that
somebody just landed on the moon. Absolutely.
Right? We're talking about human accomplishment here. What did it take to do that?
Yeah. Where's it at? You don't see it.
And we don't see it because we're so busy paying attention to the wrong things.
Right.
We're not paying attention to the right things.
We're paying attention to what's trending.
Yeah. Are we paying attention to how many new water wells were dug in an area that was previously arid, and now that they have crops and they're feeding themselves? We have to pay attention to that at all?
No, not at all.
Oh, because that's boring, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't hit our dopamine.
No. Mm-mm.
And the problem with the dopamine is it's going to do one of two things. Either it's going to make me feel, yes, I like that, or no, I hate that. There's no in between anymore. It's too polarized.
Yeah.
And we talked about that during the movie that we talked about, the documentary we talked about.
Yeah.
That was the one which is Netflix had, which was The Social Dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
And that will tell you why we think the way we think. And if you can understand that, that lets you stop for a moment and unchain yourself from those burdens.
Yeah, time to change your course of action. Change your course of
action. Absolutely. And the first thing to do to change the course of action is to understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
If I know what's happening, I'm a cog in that wheel.
Right.
Now I know what I am. I know my role in that wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I can change my destiny by changing where I am in that cog.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yes, sir.
See? Tiny little thing like asking what's new in the world.
Well, I'm trying to think. There's so much happening, and we're fed so much information.
But there's a reason for that.
Oh, I know. It's to keep us distracted. Yes, absolutely.
When we talk about, and I've talked about the effect of the 1 in a million.
Mm-hmm.
The 1 in a million effect.
Right.
So the 1 in a million effect is real simple. Stage 1, a million people complain.
Yep.
Frustrated. They complain on social media. They just complain. That's all they do, right?
Right.
So, okay, great. So what happens with 1 in a million? Most people stop at venting because that's all they want to do. They just want to get it off their chest and they're done.
Right.
All right, now we got to break that down because every time you make a step change, it's a 10% hit. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So now a small group tries to organize. That's 100,000.
100,000. Right.
A fraction of the people decide to take action.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to sign petitions. They're going to do advocacy groups.
Right.
But here's what happens now. You got to remember that the further you move, the more resistance you're going to get.
Yep. Now you're down to 10,000.
Now, if you're in social venting, social media could potentially shadow ban you, block you, cut your posts out, etc. That's the resistance you're going to get.
Right.
They'll shut your account off. But if you're in the 10,000, 100,000 group, the roadblocks are going to be bureaucracy, misinformation, fear of consequences. You're going to be made to be aware of the consequences that could happen if you keep going.
Right.
But then a committed few, the 10,000 of the 100,000, they say, you know what? Only a small group stays engaged long term. This is where the pushback happens. Lawsuits, censorship, job risks. If I say something, I'm going to lose my job. And a lot of people stop at that point going, I can't afford to lose my job.
Right.
I can't afford to have a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So this is called systemic resistance. This is where institutions make you quit. Financial, legal, social pressure.
Right.
Okay. So this is where the beginning of the resistance occurs. So then you say, of the people say, I'm not afraid of any of that.
Right.
Stage 4 is the leaders of change. That's 1,000 people.
1,000 people left. Yeah.
All right. They won't back down. They become the recognized voices. They become the ones that people begin to listen to because they won't shut up.
Right.
They shift from activism to influence. They want to have a seat at the table.
But now you have influence on both ends and infiltration happens.
This is where the system tries to either absorb you,
yes, correct,
or neutralize you. So absorb you says, oh, I like what you're saying. This is great. Let me help you become part of what I'm doing. And we'll use my platform to make you better.
Right.
And your voice will be heard because you now have a seat at the table. That's neutralizing you. Either you absorb them or neutralize them. So then what do we get now? Okay.
We're down to 100. Stage 5.
This is where you break through. Your mindset changes. You're not distracted. You can't be taken off task.
Yep.
But this is where the real threats begin to happen. This is where you can see the evidence of bad things are happening to you because of what you're doing.
Correct.
But if you continue on, what happens? The further you get to being the one, the more you, number one, don't care. Number two, the influence doesn't matter to you. You can absorb whatever's getting thrown at you, even if it means going to jail.
Right.
Because your voice is going to be bigger than whatever that is.
Yep. But this is the same time when the system recognizes who you are as well.
Oh my goodness. The system's going to come at you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Look, I've always said, when you have a journey to success, it's a journey, it's not a destination. But the closer you get to the top of your mountain, the lonelier you're going to be.
Absolutely.
Because people can't stay with you on that journey. It's too difficult. And if you want to get to the top of the mountain, it's a very lonely place.
Absolutely.
You don't talk to people anymore because people are going to distract you. They're going to slow you down. You can't drag people to the top of the mountain with you. Either they're trying to get there faster than you or they're left behind. But that's the reality of it.
I feel like you're preaching right now.
I know I'm preaching. But what occurs if you can become the 10?
Yeah.
That means in your lifespan, in your life, you have a massive influence. But to become the 1 in a million, it becomes legacy, meaning it goes beyond your life.
Right. And
your legacy is remembered after you're gone.
Yeah.
And that is the loneliest place, because many, many, many of the most celebrated, successful people in the world have only gotten their success after they've already been dead.
Yep. Now their history.
And their history. Look at Tesla, for God's sake. The man was a genius. He wasn't recognized during his life. He was nothing but attacked his entire life.
Yeah.
And probably even killed. And after the fact,
correct,
you get to understand his brilliance.
He was on some groundbreaking stuff.
So that was a legacy. That was beyond his life.
Yeah.
But
have you read some of his papers?
Oh, just astonishing.
Yeah. I'm always been fascinated by the time machine one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they said it's like you're folding time.
Folding space and folding time.
Space and time. Yeah.
Yep.
Time is known to have a beginning and an end. If that's beginning and end, therefore it's a certain dimension. If I have another dimension on top of that, it's like the difference between 1 dimension, single line, 2 dimension piece of paper, 3 dimension cube.
Right.
Okay, what happens with the 4th dimension?
Absolutely.
5th dimension.
Yeah.
Keep going. Okay. Keep going. So it's pretty wild.
Sure is.
Yeah. So when you're talking about going from the 1 million to the 1, there's certain roadblocks that start to happen. Things like your mindset is going to shift. You're going to think differently. Strategic action. You're going to start to think strategically. So how do I move in this chessboard?
Right.
I'm not playing checkers anymore. I'm playing chess. How do I move in chess? I have to think 10 levels ahead instead of 2.
And you got to understand which each piece move.
You also have to understand leveraging your networks.
Yep.
I can't do it all alone. If I'm a single lone wolf, what's going to happen? I'm going to be taken out by 100 hyenas.
Absolutely.
But if I have a second wolf or a second lion next to me, the hyenas are going to run. But you also have to know when to adapt or double down.
Correct.
Because if you adapt, that's great, because adapting means survival. But you also have to know when to draw the line in the sand. You have to know when to hold your line and not compromise your principles. So that's difficult, right?
Absolutely.
And you can look at it from the layers of civil rights leaders, tech innovators, and whistleblowers. Those are 3 different categories of people who have gone to the 1 in a million and made a difference beyond their life.
Right.
But you also see each of those has had pushback. Did you guys ever watch the Steve Jobs movie?
Yeah, I saw it. It's pretty fascinating movie.
Interesting when you start to look at what kind of pushback did he get when he was trying to do innovation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that tells you, and he did something that was legacy beyond his life. But he was 1 in a million.
He definitely was.
So it's pretty fascinating when you see that. Robin Williams, 1 in 10 million. They don't make them like that. And you also notice those who have the highest highs have the lowest lows.
Correct.
And the demons they carry are something you can't even fathom.
Oh man, look at Michael Jackson.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
His work ethic and his artistic ability and what he was able to create was mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling.
Absolutely mind-boggling. But his demons are also mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can't even begin. If you can't wrap your mind around what he did that you could see, imagine the parts that you can't wrap your mind around that you can't see.
Right.
It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Pretty fascinating.
I'm done preaching though, right?
And you know what? We're getting close to closing out.
We never run out of subject material.
We never run out, man. And that was a freestyle. That was pretty.
Freestyle.
That was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight for a Flight of Freestyle. Man, that time went by fast. Sheesh. We probably could stay on for another hour or two. Oh man, that's crazy. Listen, my smarts, again, you guys, go like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe to material. Before I close out my closing statements, remember, stay balanced, stay equal, stay smart. I'm the Final Boss. This is the Final Boss podcast. That's Big Mike. He's the sensei. You guys have any questions? Hit us up on social media. Shoot me an email. If you would like to be a guest on the show, shoot me an email at info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. That's the email. Look out for the merch behind me. Let me turn it up.
And comment on the platforms. If you feel just, it's one thing to be a consumer and just consume. It's a whole nother thing to say, hey, look, that triggered something. I have a thought about that.
Right.
I don't care if your thought's good, bad, or indifferent. Put your thought back out there.
Yeah.
Give some feedback. And what it does, it helps us to shape or develop the content, which is going to potentially address a question that you might have that another 100 people have.
Absolutely.
So say something.
Yeah.
Don't be shy.
Say something. This is the podcast where we have the most difficult conversations. So
and you know what? It's hard to hurt our feelings.
Oh yeah, you can't hurt our feelings.
No.
Listen, you cannot hurt our feelings at all. Look, the Final Boss merch store is coming soon. It's going to be thefinalboss.com. The merch store is coming soon. Look out for that. And more shows and more information is on the way. Tomorrow night, my special guest night. We got a hot topic. I have a sovereign citizen on the show tomorrow night. His name is Saeed L. And if anybody's interested in that information on how to be a sovereign citizen, or if you're just curious about what it is, he will be on the show tomorrow night at 9 p.m. as my special guest. So see you on tomorrow. And remember, Sunday, Tuesday, and special guest night Thursday. And that's our show for tonight. You have any closing arguments? No?
I'm chilling like a villain.
Chilling like a villain.
Yep. Life is good.
Life is good.
I remember today to stop for a moment
and
go, today is a great day to be alive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
As long as I have that moment every day, I live that day.
Man, you can.
I did not exist. I lived. The days that I don't get that, I only existed. And I will not exist on this planet. I will live.
Y'all go out there and live. And we're going to close out. Keep living, people. Everything's temporary. Just remember that. Everything's temporary. I love you guys. You have a great night. Have a great week. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.